gon' give it to you. Fuck, wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock, open up the door, it's real. With the non-stop pop out and stainless steel.
Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We got two devblogs today, so not just the Centurion one, we also got another devblog which is focusing on the XM-1C and the XM-1GM. These are technically the prototypes of the Abrams, two competing designs which were going head to head to see who would go on to make the Abrams. Now the main differences between something like this XM1 and the Abrams is first of all the armor. So the XM1s get composite armor, they do not have the additional Chobham armor upgrade which the M1 Abrams got. The gun itself is very similar and there are a few design changes with that. What I'm going to do now is just let you know that I also did a talk with Bad Mofo, who is a seasoned Rank 6 player in War Thunder. He also knows the history behind a lot of the Rank 6 vehicles. So what I'm going to do is put it here, and then afterwards I'll give my own opinion. So first of all, let's look at the key differences between the XM1C and the XM1GM. Which to you would you say, I suppose, in real life, are the differences between the two competing models?
In real life, so far as the military was concerned, it would have been cost. In real life, I feel the GM model was the better tank due to the options and upgrades it had, pneumatic suspension, the engine being a little more quiet, and probably I don't want to get into the politics of durability, but just the diesel engine, its simplicity over the turbine. They gave it to the GM, and one of the biggest deciding factors on that in real life was the cost, in which the Chrysler beat the GM in significantly.
So at the end of the day, which one did they actually go for as a working prototype of the Abrams?
The Chrysler is what they went with, and then again due to economy costs.
And when we look at the gun, the 105mm, to me it seems very similar to the gun we have on the M1 Abrams. They talk about in the devblog that it's able to fire APFSDS, Hesh, Heat FS, and smoke shells. Would you say it's going to just blanket get the same rounds as the Abrams in game, or do you think they may take away its highest APFSDS round?
That's a real good question. Don't know if they're going to throw balance in there, so we can't really predict what they're going to do yet. So going historically accurately, by timelines, it was in the 70s, correct? Late 70s. The M833 round wasn't made available to the M1 Abrams until the early 80s. So let's just scratch 833 out. The breech wasn't even developed to handle a higher pressured round like that, new propellants or higher amounts of propellant. I would say I would not be surprised if it did get the 774 round. In that time area, it could handle it. That breech should be able to, if it was the same breech as the M60 time era's variants in that zone. So I'd say 735, 774. 833 is nowhere going to be available for this. It should not be historically at all.
And when we look at the M1 Abrams and these XM1s, the biggest difference is the armor on it. So obviously on the XM1s it just has composite, with the Abrams it has Chobham. What is the difference between the two armor types, especially when it comes to the gameplay point of view?
When it comes to the gameplay point of view, this tank is pretty much, in my opinion, I hate this, it's not going to be as effective as the Abrams, of course. You're going to find a balance between MBT-70 and Abrams. So far as effectiveness against the kinetic rounds, I think you're going to find middle ground. If you want to throw numbers out there, MBT-70 is 320 turret cheeks. Abrams is 380, 400. I think you're going to find about a 360 middle ground right in there somewhere. It's going to perform nicely, at whatever BR they give it. You're still ultimately, it's going to go up against tanks that are going to be able to pin it, obviously, especially the T-64s. Both variants, Alpha and Bravo, their upgraded rounds should be able to penetrate this thing easily.
So when we look at the gameplay point of view, one thing you brought up was the T-64A and the T-64B there. For me, I'm struggling to think of what BR this could be. Now, my guess is a solid 8.7, but do you think that's too low for this machine?
Yes, I think it's too low. Going with the fact that the MBT and KPZ 70s are currently at 9.0, and this thing is going to have better armor than that and equal mobility historically in real life. This thing was just as mobile, if not more. And these will be or should be more mobile than Abrams, going by the fact they're going to be lighter tanks. They don't have the armor weight on them. These tanks here, in my opinion, are going to be around 9.3.
So with that said, obviously we don't have any other premium tank that's anywhere near that, and they also class them as rank 5. So with that being said, do you think there is any way they could limit the ability of these tanks to try and lower the BR, especially since there's going to be a lot of Xbox players running around with this thing with literally no other tanks or aircraft in their lineup? Do you think somehow, is there like a system which we're not entirely sure about from a historical sense that could limit this machine? Maybe reload, maybe gun stability, maybe acceleration. Is there anything that they could maybe toss out the windows to try and balance this instead of putting it at that high BR?
Honestly, maybe the fire control system, a little bit less stabilizer effect, which the Abrams, I think they did their own thing. Don't quote me on that. They could take out the blowout doors on this thing. I have not seen any mention of that, blowout compartments or survivability on this at all. That could be easily an easy thing to assume that they won't implement to create balance. The tank's going to perform. I'm not really sure how they can balance it out other than making it a glass cannon.
And when we look at the MBT-70 had blower doors as well, correct?
Yes, the MBT-70 did. The KPZ-70 did not.
Right, so we already have them taking out blowout doors on a machine, so they may do that with this. And when I look at the composite armor, the main differences seem to be, when we look at the two machines, the hull and also that slight flat part on the front of the Chrysler. Basically, the Chrysler seems to have worse armor than the GM version. Would you agree with that, or would you say it's pretty much comparable?
On the whole, just looking from the outside, I would give the whole design, better hull design to the Chrysler just due to the angles. You got to get slight flat, but you have a higher chance, in my opinion, when it comes to the game, penetrating the GM's upper front plate. Just going by angle. We don't know the thicknesses, so we're just going by looks on the angle. I would say the GM. But going along those lines, we can go into the turret if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about the turret.
All right, so moving from the hull, in my opinion, like I said, we're giving it to the Chrysler. The turret, if you look at the turret optics ports, the GM, I'm going to give it to the GM having a stronger turret due to the fact that the optics are not negating or taking away any armor off the cheek. The optics are on the side of the turret. Whereas on the Chrysler, you have the optics creating a whole space in that right turret cheek. To me, that's just another. We're going to have MBT, KPZ, kill zone, shot therapy right there again. It's going to be the same thing on the Chrysler. But I would give the GM the upper hand when it comes to survivability head on.
For me, it also seems like a big weak spot for those HE rounds they chucked in for the T-64s.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that 100%.
Now, obviously, if we look at the two machines, the kill spots look pretty much identical to something like an M1 Abrams. But what I'm wondering is, if they do stick it at 9.3 BR, do you think it's going to match up against, obviously, the Leopard 2K and the T64, very similar to the Abrams, or do you think it is definitely going to have a disadvantage compared to those vehicles?
It'll have a disadvantage compared to the Abrams one. If for one, less armor. I feel that everything that's implemented now, top tier, should be able to pin this stuff. All their APF SDS is going to be able to pin this tank. When a top tier concern, this is going to be a glass cannon. Okay, this is going to be the RU-251 of 6.7. In my opinion, and we don't know what rounds it's going to get. If we assume that it gets a 7.74 round, it'll be just as effective as the Abrams on the offensive, but defending, it's going to be less. It's going to be a glass cannon in that aspect.
Yeah, for me personally, I think it's going to be much more on the Leopard 2K side of things, so it's going to fit the meta a lot better than something like an M1 Abrams, but it also means that the M1 Abrams is going to have to get something that kind of distinguishes it from the armor. Now, we have seen the Type 90 also be announced, and one of the things that a lot of people have found in the files is the fact that the M833 round is there in the files. Do you think the M1 Abrams will get this round to distinguish it from the XM1s, or do you think they'll just keep the same rounds as it had before?
It's a very good question. I would like to see the 833 round going on since the introduction to the Type 90. And reason being, the Type 90 versus the T64 Bravo in real life, and going on the stats that have been stated all throughout the forums and the internet or whatnot, wherever you can gather, this thing is predicted to have almost around the 500 mark of versus kinetic, if not more, on the turret cheeks. The in-game 833 round, I have to pull it up, the files that we had found. It was around 470 or so, close to 500 inside 1,000 meters. And it would be a 50-50 shot in the dark to take this thing from the front. I would feel it would be rightfully justified to give the Abrams 833 round to combat a tank that's going to be just as mobile and have probably a faster reload, if not just as fast reload rate with a 120 millimeter bigger gun. I would feel it'd be a justifiable modification upgrade to give the Abrams the 833 round.
All right, thank you very much for joining me. And do you have any last words?
No, I don't. Try not to get disgruntled and enjoy the game.
All right, let's get back to it. So since in that chat we covered a lot to do with the vehicles themselves and how they're going to perform in the game and generally, how it is going to happen, what I'm going to do is focus on the other side of it. So instead of the vehicles themselves, the ideas which are brought ahead in this Devblog. One of the things that has been key to a lot of Rank 6 players is the issue with Silver Lions. The rewards and the repair costs of the top tier vehicles have definitely been put out of whack the last few weeks, and the reason for this is, well, because, I don't know, you better ask Gaijin. For me personally, I think the fix is to increase the amount of rewards you get for the kills that you get, so it's actually profitable to use these vehicles even in a defeat. And also put the emphasis on the skill of the player, so if you're not doing well, then you won't get rewarded, but if you are doing well, or at least average, then you should be able to get rewarded. What seems to me is when I look at the two distinct decisions that were made, the Rank 6, rewards, the repair costs and the rewards were cut, and now we have the addition of the XM1s for the Xbox and also the PC. To me, it seems like they've added this in with the emphasis on research and Silver Lions to basically bridge that gap for a lot of players. A lot of players have been complaining about the Silver Lions gain at high ranks, and they're completely correct. And this, to me, seems to be a addition which is aimed to solve that from a gameplay point of view. Now, whether you agree with that or disagree with that, since you have to spend $50 on a fix, then that is up to you. For me personally, I disagree with it. As I said, I'd rather just see rewards increased. We already talked about the major differences between the competing designs, so for me what I want to talk about is the fact that when we look at win rates, when we look at who's doing well right now at higher tiers, if the M1 Abrams wasn't limited on the amount of vehicles that it could take into a battle, for me I feel like the Abrams would still be up there. But if we look at the statistics from this point, you can go to Thunderskill, you can go to other sources for this information. The Leopard 2K is the one which has actually got a higher win rate. Now this may be because of its lower BR, this may also because it has the 120mm, and it has a little bit of shaky armor where stuff bounces or goes through when it really shouldn't. The XM1s, to me, are going to be much more similar to the Leopard 2K than the actual M1 Abrams in-game. They're going to be a hell of a lot faster, they're going to have a lot less armor, and also the general playstyle is going to be much similar to the Leopard 2K than the all-round playstyle that the Abrams offers, since the M1 Abrams has the armor to back it up. So, in my opinion, the XM1 is going to be a wonderful machine. The Leopard 2K is doing really well. The XM1, it all depends on BR. Since it's a rank 5 premium, I personally can't see it being above 9.0, even though in the talk we just had, 9.0, 9.3 was seen as where it should be. For me personally, since it's a rank 5, 8.7 or 8.3 is where it would stand, but 8.3 is way too low, and 8.7, you're comparing it to the Brennus, and it would absolutely just take a dump on the Brennus. So even with that said, could you even put it there? And then again, most things take a dump on the Brennus. So maybe putting it at 9.0, 9.3 would make more sense, but if they limit it in certain ways, they could definitely put it at that 8.7 bracket, where it would make more sense being a rank 5. Instead, this is going to be the first technical rank 6 premium we have in game, being such a high BR. And it is kind of nice that the Xbox guys do get their own. If you don't know, I'll read it out for you. So here we go. On the whole, the XM1 is an excellent top-range tank in the US tech tree, and its premium status significantly boosts the research for any armored vehicle in the American tech tree between ranks 1 and 6, and brings excellent bonuses to Silver Lions. As I said, they just cut stuff like this, and this seems to be the main selling point for it. The XM1 tank is available for pre-order in our digital goods store. The XM1 GM version is available to PC and PS4 users, and the XM1C version will be exclusive to Xbox One, a new platform to War Thunder. So in update 1.79, we're getting the Xbox users. This is going to be a wonderful occasion, just like it was when the PS4 players came about, because it means you get new blood in the game, which is always good, a good idea. Now, from talking to PS4 players and also testing War Thunder for myself on a controller, an Xbox 360 controller, it's actually kind of fun. It's not as precise as a keyboard, but it's still interesting, and I think that will be put onto the Xbox at the same time. And the Xbox One, with basically its hardware that it has, it should be able to run War Thunder at some of the highest levels and make it look absolutely beautiful. So if you're looking for a free-to-play game on Xbox One that you haven't played before and you're interested in World War II or even modern vehicles nowadays, this is your chance to get into War Thunder. But the fact that we have a specific version of this vehicle for Xbox One, the XM1C, what I would personally have liked to see is a lower tier premium which was more exclusive. I understand. I get the marketing behind it. The marketing behind it is, look at this really top tier shiny new American tank. The Xbox One, if you look at it, the main sales for it are in Europe and the US, mainly the US. So because of that, you want to throw in a big top tier American premium. The issue is, when people start playing War Thunder on Xbox One, buy the XM1C, what you're going to get is a ton of players with one tank in their lineup, plus a bunch of reserves, rank 1s or 2s, and then no aircraft as well to back it up. So realistic battles and arcade battles, and maybe not simulator, but maybe simulator if they're involved, they're going to be screwed up for weeks, because we're going to have this influx of players with this tank which are not going to have any backup to it. Now, Bad Mofo himself has talked about the fact that at top tiers, the only main thing that matters is your MBT. Everything else doesn't... It's nice to add on, but the majority of the time the battles happen over 5 to 7 minutes, so therefore your first spawn is so important compared to everyone else's, or every other spawn. And I've talked about this in the past as well, and I agree with it. The snowball effect of War Thunder is incredibly high, especially at high tiers, where a lot of people have the speed, they have the gun to be able to camp spawns incredibly quickly out of range of the spawns themselves. The XM-1 coming into the game means that we're going to have a lot of people with a lineup of just the XM-1. And that is not just exclusive to Xbox One, that'll also be exclusive to PC and PS4 players. This is an issue I brought up ages ago with the IS-6. I didn't mind the IS-6 as a premium. What I had an issue with was the people who had the IS-6 and just the IS-6. I came up with a solution. The solution then is the same as the solution now. You should only be able to use a premium if you are one rank lower than it or one rank higher than it. So in the form of the XM1, you would have to get yourself your first rank 4 vehicle before you're able to use this machine. Will they implement that idea? No, because it would mean that less players would be able to use this right off the bat. But just understand that everything from the first 2 to 3 weeks or month of this new patch is going to be completely useless for working out how useful stuff like the Type 90 is, because we're going to have a bunch of these running around, and the win rates and all of this stuff is just going to be completely useless to look at. So from that type of point of view, I'm personally going to stay off having a look at these machines until maybe slightly later on, when everything's a little bit more balanced out, instead of just having new players to the game have this new shiny machine, which is going to cock up the whole matchmaking scenario. Hopefully it means that the limiter gets taken off the M1 Abrams. Wouldn't that be nice? So you don't just have 4 a match. Instead, you can have half a match of these and half a match of Abrams against T-64Bs. That would be lovely to see going forward. Now, hopefully that's the case. If not, then, well, we're going to have another chat about this, aren't we? Again. But overall, is it a good addition to the game? Yes. Should it be premium? I mean, I personally would say no. I think it's a little bit high tier to be premium, but I understand why they've done it, with the reasons that I've gone through so far. I am looking forward to it. I will try and I'll try and be able to test it on the dev server for you, just to see how it is, and just compare this to the Centurion AVRE, and you can understand why I'm annoyed about the Centurion when stuff like this is getting added. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.